Has shot 65% in the fourth quarter, 13 of 20. But I know there's always an element of shot making, but just to be in that situation on the road, their offenses come in and to get that quality of shots, to get that type of shot making, would you feel during that fourth quarter?
It was great shot making. Both teams, including us, the guys stepped up and made big plays. The best part about that is in those situations, getting a shot every time down to get 20 field goal attempts in the fourth is good because it means you're not turning it over and you're getting shots on goal, which not only gives you a chance to make the shots, but it gives you a chance to get back and set your defense. So thought the execution was pretty good on that end of the floor last night.
I wasn't able to track it out. I don't know if this is something you guys do, but it seemed like Kaysen had like 20 loose balls last night.
Yeah.
Just what'd you see from him in terms of just kind of being on the spot?
Yeah, he's got a great nose for the ball. He's a ball hawk, and he got a couple timely offensive rebounds. Even the fadeaway he made on the under out of bounds play was kind of a broken play. He had to go get a catch there before he even got the shot up, and he had the one in the post on Gobert. He's got a couple tips from behind that didn't even change possessions for us, but just kind of killed plays. So he continues to be incredibly impactful for us, and we move him all over the floor, both ends, and he just looks like a seasoned guy out there.
Look, it's one thing to make shots, but they were big shots because they were making runs at you, and it was different guys. Jalen, Shea obviously, but Caruso gets underneath the basket a couple of times. Just different guys stepping up and make plays.
Yeah, last night the offense won us the game. I thought defensively we got a little loose down the stretch, calling it like it is. It was kind of that kind of game for both teams. The offenses were better than the defenses last night, and so we needed all those points in order to win the game. There is some things we can learn on the defensive end. I thought we just got a little loose late game on some things that we can hopefully clean up as we head into game 5. But the offense was huge and the shot making was huge. And the guys made the right plays. They moved the ball. You mentioned the Caruso plays. Those were both passes. A couple of Jalen shots were from Shea. Chet had one from Shea. So we shared it pretty well too.
You guys, I'm sure you chart everything. I've never figured out, but how many illegal screens does Dort draw? They set an illegal screen on him.
Well, Dort got 2 last night. His rate's actually down in the playoffs. He hasn't gotten called for as many of them in the playoffs. I think illegal screens generally are down in the playoffs. They haven't called as many of those just by the numbers. But, he's almost like 1 per game over the last few years. He's up there. There was 1 year I think he was over 1 per game. So it's all, Lou's incredibly physical. He doesn't get screened. He does a great job of avoiding screens. He zips under, he zips over. And in order to get him off of the other team's guy, you really have to screen him to contact. And when he's trying to avoid the screen and you have to screen somebody that strong to contact, that's where the illegality comes from. And so it's no accident that he draws them. But he had 2 big ones last night, on the Randall screen and the McDaniel screen.
You guys did a great job of limiting shots for Edwards and Randall last game. Obviously can't take away everything in Minnesota, but once you do get the ball out of their hands, what can you do to make things difficult for guys like McDaniels and Nikhil?
Yeah, I think that's where we could have been better last night. Obviously we did a good job on those 2 guys and creating a crowd and forcing them to pass the ball on a lot of plays. But the DiVincenzo threes were almost all clean and corner threes. And so there's certain things you live with, if it's like you take away the first part of the play and then you get a late contest, you probably have to live with that against a good offensive team and live to fight another possession. But the ones where like they're standing still in the corner and lining those shots up, they did a great job of making those shots last night. And they also made some tough ones, but the ones that are clean, that's where we can learn, and improve.
Obviously young guys are going to have their ups and downs in the playoffs, but J-Dub seems like somebody doesn't stay down for long. He bounces back quickly last game. Think a good example. Just what is it about his mindset, his approach, his play style that allows him to do that?
Well, he's a great player, first of all. And when you're a great player, you have more access to great games. And he's a great player. So he's still learning, and the playoffs are hard. And I mentioned this in the Denver series, but you look at guys like Jokic, had some tough games in our series. Shea's had tough games in the playoffs. Dubs have tough games in the playoffs. Like all the great players, you don't play 14 games of high-level basketball and just coast through it. It's just not how it works. You don't do that in the regular season, but you certainly don't do it in the playoffs. So I think because of Dub's age and relative inexperience, there's a little bit more of a spotlight on that. But the reality is all great players go through the ups and downs in a playoff run, and he's no different. But he's done a great job of learning from that and keeping himself in it and playing the next possession, playing the next game, and it's served him and us really well.
What sort of lift has Kenrich given you in the series specifically?
I mean, he's been great. He's given us really, really quality minutes. This is a big team, Minnesota. They have big wings. They have big front court player. Reed is like a big four. Randall's a big four. Obviously, Gobert's huge. But McDaniels, has great wing size. Alexander Walker's got good wing size. Edwards is obviously a electric athlete. They're playing Shannon, who's got great wing size. So they're just kind of big across the board. And so he just kind of helps the cumulative size. He helps on the glass. He can handle a bunch of different matchups. He helps us a little bit offensively. And it's kind of a way for us to, play smaller and gain some fluidity on offense while maintaining a level of, like I said, positional size and physicality. And he's done a great job. He's played inconsistent role game to game, but when we've called his number, he's been incredibly impactful, including last night. He gave us big minutes.
The team has done a great job of staying in the moment, not getting too far ahead, and looking at what's on the horizon. What's been the key for them to be able to not look what's on the next level?
Yeah, we just try to make a habit of staying very present, and we've tried to do that for years now. So that's not like a playoff skill. That's hopefully in the water, at least in terms of our ideals. Like it's hard to stay present. It's easy to slip into the past or slip into the future, but we've tried to do a good job of grounding into the moment and just handling the next challenge in front of us, the next game in front of us. If we're in the game, the next possession in front of us, and just trust the compounding nature of just stacking those games and stacking those possessions and stacking those days. And this team's done an unbelievable job of that. And I think that's where we access our best. So that'll be important for us in Game 5, as it is every night.
I was about to say, when you're one step away from the EVA finals, is that what you rely on, that history of staying in the moment, knowing you have confidence to be able to go in and no one's going to try to do more than what they normally do?
Yeah, I mean, all that matters right now is Game 5. The most important game in the playoffs is always the next one. They're all, heavy, and they all matter a great deal. And Game 5 is no different tomorrow. It's our next challenge in front of us. And if we want to win Game 5, it starts by our preparation tomorrow morning. And then once the ball goes up in the air, our execution of the first possession and then the second and third and, so on.
Maybe this relates to the presence that you're talking about, but your guys always talk about trying to learn something meaningful from every experience to get better for each experience. As you look at maybe the 96 hours of your time in Minneapolis, what do you feel like the guys learned from that 2-game set?
Well, we learned a lot from the game, Game 3 itself. I think there was a certain level of thrust and force and physicality that Minnesota brought to that game that we didn't level up to. And we certainly had to learn that lesson, and we applied that in Game 4. And Minnesota wasn't any less physical, forceful, or ready to play. I mean, both teams were incredibly ready to play last night. That was a high-level game. But the other thing is just the neutrality of the 96 hours. I mean, we didn't change anything we do. The mood of the team didn't change. Our process didn't change. That's something we've taken pride in, through the ups and downs over the course of years. That day to day, we're pretty cold-blooded about just stripping the lessons from the last game, learning from them, and then applying them forward, and then fully competing in the next opportunity and repeating that process as ruthlessly as we can. And I thought the guys did a great job of that, coming off of what was obviously a disappointing loss.
I know you said after Chet missed the 2 free throws in the Denver series, you said it's the last guy you worry about. Considering what happened in Game 3, was home, all the family there to watching, is it the same thing?
Yeah, I mean, this whole team, I really, after game 3, I mean, we showed, the stuff that we needed to improve and certainly made sure that we, took the relevant lessons from that game. But like, they don't need speeches, and they don't need motivation. Like, you can pretty safely bet on the internal competitiveness and pride and collective competitiveness and pride of this team. And Chet's a great example of that. I mean, he's always going to compete in the next moment. He's always going to stand back up. He's still growing. He's still learning. He's not perfect, but he's competitive, and so you knew that the juices would be flowing, and he was massive last night. He made some big time plays for us.